Yes, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you are. And greetings to you also if you are joining us on YouTube. We are delighted you are joining us. Today is the 14th of May, 2026, and we meet again as we usually always do on a Thursday in order to discuss our thinking with respect to the philosophy and the ideology of Consciencism. So, welcome everyone. I would like to welcome all members here one by one to appreciate you because you use your hard-earned money and time to contribute, in order that the majority would benefit. So we would like to appreciate you and thank you. So thank you, Sister Tapua. I'm just going by the list as displayed on my screen. I'm starting from the bottom up. So Sister Tapua, thank you. Brother Coco, thank you. Brother Sechaba, thank you. Brother Ifo, thank you. Brother Welcome. Windhawk, thank you. Brother Pigeon, thank you and welcome. And Sister Portia, welcome and thank you. So as displayed by the names we have brothers and sisters joining us from all over the world, from the US to the southernmost part of Africa. So we appreciate you all. And I'm sure the ancestors and the Almighty God also appreciate you. So we shall proceed with the reading, and our dear brother Ifo, based in the Northern Hemisphere, is going to read for us. Brother Ifo, soul yours, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So, starting from the highlighted section.
Yes, please.
It is fashionable, in particular among philosophers who eschew dialectics, to say that matter is inert. What that means must be distinguished from what the inertia of matter means in Newton. Newton defined inertia axiomatically, as for example, in his first law of motion. According to this law, a body, except insofar as it is impressed upon by an external force, continues in its state of uniform motion in a straight line. The position of rest is easily accommodated as a limiting case of motion in a straight line. Now, it is quite proper, instead of giving a direct definition of an introduced term, to elucidate its meaning by means of axioms. The axiom will, in fact, set out what one is to gather from the use of the introduced term. In the case of Newton's law of motion, we see that here too a body's power of linear self-motion is denied. Indeed, Newton will also deny a body's power of rotary self-motion. And to borrow a word invented by Whitehead, the inertia of matter corresponds to its pushiness.
Thank you so much for your reading. So, as usual, we shall proceed with sharing our thinking on what has been read. And as is customary with us, the reader will be given some time to, because he or she has read, to pause, and we'll come back to the reader later. So we've read the reading for today. Yes, brother Sam.
Chair, I'm sorry, I just joined. I'm not sure if difficult words have been clarified.
Yes, we can do that now. I didn't see any, but let's have a look, and definitely let's.
I've noted 3.
Yeah, which ones?
The first one.
Which one? The first one?
Eschewed or eschewed.
Oh, eschew, yes. Eschew.
And dialectics.
Dialectics, yeah.
And then axioms.
And axioms, right. Okay.
Inertia.
And inertia. Okay. All right, let's go through them one at a time. Let's start with eschew. Anybody knows what that means? Please share it with us. Thank you. What does it mean to eschew something? Well, first, what does it mean to chew something? If you chew something, what does it mean? Surely you must like it, isn't it? If you chew something, if you eat something, it seems to me you
understanding is the opposite of that.
Precisely. So when you eschew, you are doing the opposite of that. Yeah.
To deliberately avoid or shun
That's
or
right.
abstain from something.
Yes. So
according
if you chew
to
it,
Google.
yes, if you chew it, it means you like it. If you eschew it, it means you dislike it. You don't want to engage with it, etc., etc. Yeah. Are we happy with that? So if you're happy with that, so eschew dialectics means that there are philosophers who are non-dialectical philosophers. That is, they don't like dialectics. And usually this will be philosophers, for example, who are into religion. Religious philosophers don't like dialectics, do they? Because they believe in idealism, which is fundamentally the idea that God created the world. So, and God is a spirit. So for them, spirit is the basis of the universe. So they don't like dialectics. All right, so let's go to the next word. If there's nothing else to add, the next word is, did you say innate? Anyone? Did you say innate, brother? Innate? I didn't write the words down as you
said inertia.
Inertia, innate. Inertia and innate, I think, have the same root, isn't it? So, what does innate mean? Innate. Anyone want to share with us? Please feel free. Thank you.
Not reactive.
Not reactive. Like, yeah, like helium. Yeah, helium is said to be an innate chemical substance, so it doesn't react with anything. You know, it's an interesting universe. So not reactive. Yeah. So when matter is innate, it means that yeah. So those who don't like dialectics will say that matter is innate in the sense that matter does not react. Then the next one is inertia. So inertia will be like the noun, isn't it? The noun of innate. Are we all agreed on that? As Sister Ida has shared. So inertia means the same thing. What's the other word that we wanted to look at?
So Coco has said that inert is something about not changing. Resistance to changes in motion.
Yeah, reasons to change, not interacting. Yeah, the same idea is there. Yep, that's correct. Okay, thank you.
And somebody, I think he's also put elucidate. Was that a word that was asked?
Elucidate is to enlighten. Yeah, it comes from the word lux, which is light. Yeah, so to enlighten someone, or to make something clear, to explain things, everything. Yeah. Any other with the axioms? Yes, axioms. Yeah, that's a scientific word. So what's axiom? What is an axiom? What is an axiom?
Is it sort of a point, a pivot or something?
Yeah, it has that meaning as well. So how would you define it?
Dialectics, understanding. What does he say? Let me see. Understanding reality through. Oh, that's a dialectics. Okay, contradiction and change.
An axiom is when you accept something without proof.
Axiom.
Yeah, something without proof. So as a starting point, something that we can all agree on without anybody saying, "Well, can you prove it?" Yeah. So it's self-evidence. So there's a continent called Africa. Do we need proof for that? Do we need proof that Africa exists as a continent? Yes or no? Yes or no? Anyone?
I would say no.
So that's an axiom. Right. Brother Welcome is on this session. Do we need proof for that? Do we need proof that Brother Welcome is here?
I work in cybersecurity, so I would say yes, because we don't know if the Zoom account was hacked.
Okay. So that's to take it to the next level where you're looking for proof. So that is not a very good example then. But the one who just spoke is Brother Ifo. Do I need proof for that?
You never met me. You haven't seen my birth certificate. You don't know that for sure.
But we know your voice and we know that is you. we don't need proof to know it's you, brother.
You also don't know if that's my real voice.
It's your real voice. We've heard this so many times.
I work in security. You don't trust anything by default.
Precise. Yeah, no, that is true. Right. So the idea is that whatever doesn't need proof is an axiom. So yeah. So I think Brother Ifo is drawing our attention to something very important, that sometimes when you say you don't need proof, you need to investigate it properly to see if it is true. You don't need proof. But that is the point. Yeah. 1 + 1 is 2. That's an axiom, isn't it? We don't need proof for that. Yeah. Do we need proof to know that 1 + 1 is 2? Yeah. Okay. So I think we've gone through all the words. Any other one? Or yes, Brother Sashaba. Unmute yourself and speak, please. Thank you.
No. Thanks. Yeah.
You're okay. Yeah. Okay.
No. I was just listening, but moving from the same theoretical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from my background, my exposure, my experience, it could be dangerous to take 1 + 1 as 2.
Yeah. Tell us why.
Because from where I'm standing from, you have to explain 1 + 1 of what before you can come to the conclusion that is 2. Because you have those that you can bring them together being 1-to-1, and then they become one thing. And what will that mean? Because I think coming from apartheid education in South Africa, that will have condemned us to a submissive education. It has produced us to be limited as to when something comes up, not to question it. And I think that's a narrative that I take 1 + 1 as a contested issue, not as a straight as it may be looked, because it's just a general perspective that we all use. But if we have to sit down and say 1 + 1, it can't be just 2, unless you specify from which angle are you moving from. Thanks.
Okay. No, that's a good point. My experience of South Africa, but as a Chaba, because I was at Wits University at the time, and the experience we had is that the elites were reluctant to ever admit they are wrong in front of their students, whereas those of us who came from England were happy to say, "I don't know, I am wrong." The South African lecturer they could not ever say they were wrong. So I can understand what you're saying within that context. Yes. Anyway, right. So, but therefore you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind all of us that most of us are here because 1 + 1 became 3, except if we have twins, and in that case, it's 4.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. So thank you all for your contribution. I will not spend time on that because that will be a different topic. But I think the key idea here is that something that doesn't need proof. That is what an axiom is. As soon as it needs proof, it is not an axiom anymore. Right. So let's proceed then. Are we all happy with those words? Shall we now proceed with sharing our thinking? Is that a yes? Good. Secondly, are you all happy for us to go back to what we've read so far, or should we just let people share their thoughts from those? What would you like? Would you like us to look back, or should we proceed and then people can, when they are sharing, look back themselves? Are we all happy with that? Yeah? Okay. So let's see who will go first. Right. Oh, we have One Map Africa here. Well, he doesn't stay long because of the time difference. So One Map Africa. Brother Chidi, you start for us because I don't think you are going to be here for 2 hours. So you never have. Brother Chidi, One Map Africa.
Thank you.
Yeah, can you start for us,
And
please?
thank you so
I
much.
know
Greetings, everybody.
Yeah, go on.
Greetings, everybody. I hope everybody is fine. Yes.
Yeah, we are all fine. Thank you.
I was just arrived in the reading was just finished, so I was just reading it myself so that I can just get acquainted to the paragraph so that I can.
That's okay. Yeah, but don't run away until you've shared your thinking, please. Yeah. so just let me know when you are ready. In the meantime, I'll go to someone else. Brother Sachaba, are you happy to start for us?
No, can you jump me? I'm just caught up.
Yeah, no problem. Let's go to brother Welcome.
Do something, but what I can only say
Brother
is that
Chidi,
what is more for the first time, I will might need to read the second.
Yeah, Chidi, you don't have to say anything now. Just pause, go through them all. I'll come back to you, okay? But oh, he's gone. Yeah, I think his internet has problems. Right. So yeah, Brother Chidi, I don't know if you can hear me now. I was saying, don't worry, you pause, read it. I'll come back to you when you're ready. Raise your hand and I'll let you come through because I know you have difficulty staying because of the internet, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so let's go to Brother Welcome. Yes, Brother Welcome.
Yes, greetings, everybody. Greetings, Brother Kwame.
Greetings, Brother Welcome.
I'm in a very tight spot.
Brother Welcome, before you proceed, there's a Namibian sister who currently lives in Japan, and she wants to join the class. And you know, the time difference in Japan is very, very terrible. It'll be around, I think, around after midnight by now. But she's adamant she wants to come. So I'm just letting you know that we should be expecting an Namibian sister very soon. Thank you. Anyway, please proceed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm in a very tight spot. I could not even hear Brother Ivo when he was reading. I'm at some memorial service procession here. So
sorry about that. So
let me just
come back to you.
Yeah, let me just listen in and get a grasp of what is happening. Thank you.
Right. As soon as you're ready, let me know. That's fine. Okay, let's go to Brother Pigeon then to share his thinking with us. Thank you.
Brother Kwame.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'll also pass for now.
Okay.
It will be better if you.
You don't need to justify. It's okay.
You don't need to justify. It's okay.
It's okay. Right. Let's go to Brother Coco, please. Thank you. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, let me just pause the reading for now. Yeah, give me a moment, please. Right, Brother Coco, you have unmuted yourself. So you may proceed. Otherwise, just give me a moment. I want to share something to inspire people, so they can share. Right. So, yeah, I want to share this from last week, just to inspire people a little, because so just give me a moment. Thank you. Yeah, I believe you can see my screen. Is that correct?
Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so excited you're here today because honestly, we're about to take a pretty mind-bending journey. We're looking at a brilliantly dense text that literally zooms from the massive, macro-level shifts of an entire continent in transition, all the way down to the microphysics of matter and the fundamental logic of language. It's like watching abstract philosophy turn into a real-world tool right before our eyes. So let's map this whole thing out. Okay, let's dive right into this with a really powerful thesis straight from the text. Practice without thought is blind. Thought without practice is empty. You know, this perfectly sets the stakes for everything we're going to talk about today. Think about it. Action without intellect, just rushing forward blindly, gets a society nowhere. But on the flip side, purely academic thought that doesn't have any real-world purposeful application is just, well, it's totally empty. We absolutely need both. So here is our logical roadmap for today's explainer. First up, thought, practice, and society. Number 2, defining philosophical consciencism. Third, the material basis of reality. And finally, Schlick, Freye, and meaning. Let's get to it.
Starting off with section 1, thought, practice, and society.
So the source text identifies 3 distinct segments within African society: the traditional segment, the Western segment, and the Islamic segment. Now the text makes it very clear that these 3 groups coexist, but uneasily. The underlying principles that animate them are constantly clashing. And the author actually issues a pretty stark warning here. Basically, if a society fails to purposefully accommodate these differing experiences, and specifically bringing those Western and Islamic segments in so they actually fit within the traditional African society, well, that society is going to be wrecked by what the text starkly calls a malignant schizophrenia. And we can actually pinpoint exactly where one of these major ideological collisions happens. On one side, you've got the principles informing imported capitalism. On the other side, the socialist egalitarianism that is deeply rooted in traditional African society. The text points out, very neutrally but firmly, that these 2 frameworks are in a direct structural conflict. I mean, they just represent fundamentally opposite ways of animating a society. So, what exactly is the path forward here? Well, the text argues that the emancipation of the African continent is, ultimately, the emancipation of man itself. And to get there, it lays out 2 very specific aims. Aim 1 is the restitution of the egalitarianism of human society. Aim 2 is the logistic mobilization of all resources to actually attain that restitution. But remember that quote from the beginning?
A social revolution of this massive scale can't just happen blindly. It absolutely must have an intellectual revolution standing right behind it, directing all that momentum toward the redemption of society. Moving right into Section 2, Defining Philosophical Consciencism.
Now, this brings up a massive question. I mean, what kind of intellectual framework could possibly unite segments of a society that are that deeply divided? The answer the source gives us is philosophical consciencism. Think of this as the intellectual map that allows society to digest Western, Islamic, and Euro-Christian elements so that they actually fit the African personality. It isn't about just erasing the conflict, right? It's about taking the conflict present in the conscience and forging progress out of it. It uses those traditional humanist principles as a baseline to literally digest and integrate these competing outside forces.
The text uses a really striking metaphor here. It states that philosophy must find its weapons in the environment and living conditions of the people. I love that framing because it proves this abstract philosophy isn't just some dusty academic pursuit in a library. No, it is an intellectual tool, a literal weapon, built straight from the environment to ensure a society survives and moves forward. The ideas absolutely have to be built from the actual living conditions on the ground.
Which brings us to Section 3, the material basis of reality. Okay, so to effectively map out a completely new society, we kind of have to ask a foundational question. What is the fundamental nature of the reality we are even trying to change? Well, the text firmly grounds its map in materialism. This philosophy asserts the absolute independent existence of matter, but then it goes a fascinating step further. It describes matter as a plenum of opposing forces. So matter isn't just sitting there empty or passive. It is absolutely packed to the brim with forces constantly pushing and pulling in antithesis to one another. And this perfectly illustrates the core philosophical difference at play here. Because matter is full of these opposing forces, the text argues it has a natural, inherent self-motion. It literally moves itself. Contrast that with Newton's axiom of inertia. As the text notes, Newton's first law says a body stays at rest or in uniform motion unless an outside force acts on it. But borrowing a term from the philosopher Whitehead, the text argues that Newton's inertia basically reduces matter to mere pushiness. It completely strips away a body's internal, original power to just move on its own. But we need to be really precise here. Self-motion doesn't just mean a physical object moving from point A to point B. The text outlines 3 distinct categories of motion. You have linear and rotary motion, which sure involve a change of place. But crucially, there's a third category, the alteration of property. So matter's inherent self-motion actually means it has the power to change its own internal properties, not just its location in space. It's a really dynamic view of the physical world.
All right, let's look at Section 4, Schlick, Frege, and meaning.
So if matter is constantly in motion and changing its properties from the inside out, how do we even define meaning when we try to analyze these changes? To figure this out, the text sets up a bit of a dialectical showdown between 2 heavy-hitting logical characters, Moritz Schlick and Gottlob Frege. This is where we zoom way in, into the deep, micro-level logic of how we verify what's actually real. First up, Moritz Schlick and his verification principle. This principle has 2 very strict parts. First, it requires empirical verification for any proposition to even be considered significant. And second, it asserts that the actual meaning of a proposition comes entirely from the method you use to verify it. Basically, if you can't physically test it and observe it, under Schlick's rule, it doesn't mean anything. It lacks significance entirely.
But the text actually pivots away from Schlick entirely. Instead, it champions an alternative approach, one that aligns with Gottlob Frege and Leibniz, the identity of meaning. Now, this principle argues that 2 expressions mean the exact same thing if identical consequences follow when they're combined with any other proposition. Notice the huge difference there? It isn't demanding a strict physical test like Schlick does. Instead, it sets up a condition based purely on logical consequences rather than just raw empirical proof.
The text uses this fantastic thought experiment to show the identity of meaning in action. Imagine an object moving through space, changing its position relative to the rest of the universe. Okay, now imagine a second state. The object stays completely still, but the entire universe revolves asymmetrically around that object. The text argues that in absolute terms, these 2 supposed states are completely indistinguishable. Because they don't produce any difference in their consequences, logically, they must signify the exact same thing. Mind-bending, right? Which brings us to our final slide, and I really want to leave you with a profound question to chew on. We started this explainer looking at massive societal forces in conflict, and we ended in the weeds with the logical consequences of language. So if the way we define our words and our logic fundamentally shapes our view of matter and motion itself, how does mapping this micro-level logic change the macro-level physical revolutions we are trying to build in society? The intellectual map guides the physical reality. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, everyone. Keep thinking.
Right. So I hope
Can you
you
please repeat
found.
that?
Sorry. Yes. So I hope you found
Can you
that.
please repeat that in slow motion?
Okay, another time there. I'll do that in another time because it's about 8. It's 80 minutes long. If I slow it down, it would take about, if I slow it down by half, it would take 16 minutes, which is a long time. So I'm happy to share it with you all. Yeah, so you can watch it in your own time. That's fine. Yeah. So, but the reason I shared it is so that you can be inspired, because it goes to the beginning and then to today, where you see the two balls, one, or the two states of matter, one that has self-motion, the other that has to be pushed. Okay, so let's go now to other brother Pigeon. You had your hand up. Did you want to share?
I can speak now.
Did you want to share? Okay, fine. Brother Coco, in that case, sorry. Just pause for Brother Pigeon to share first, and then you can come in. Yeah, Pigeon, carry on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Pigeon, carry on.
Yeah, I hope.
We can hear you, Pigeon. Carry on.
Now, yes, we can hear you. Yeah, the most important thing as I'm looking.
We can hear you. Carry on.
Thank you for sharing that video. I will be looking forward to have it. Now, the most important thing here is Nkrumah concentrating on the word matter being in the state of inertia, which actually is now what Newton is talking about. And as you have explained, I think through our explanation, that inertia means that matter doesn't do things by itself. It doesn't naturally start moving, as what you are talking about, the self-motion thing. But Nkrumah says that this phrase is often used in a vague way. That's why he's saying that we must separate it from the different meaning of what Newton says. So then Nkrumah look at, as I'm saying it, inertia in Newton's thinking, and that is the physics meaning of inertia. And he says that it's not the same as inertia. So I think we need to understand the differences in language. And that's why I think it was very important, Brother Kwame, that we were talking about identity of meaning. So when words are being used, what's the identity of meaning? Because in Newton physics, actually, it's believed that inertia is a property that describes how objects behave when there's no outside forces. And this, I think, what Newton even explained up there, what Kwame was talking about, Kwame Nkrumah, that inertia means that there's no forces outside, because then Newton believes that any move or any change can only be affected by force outside. And now he talks about actually Newton's first law of motion, that if an object is not being pushed or pulled by something external, one, it will keep moving on the same speed and keep moving in a straight line. Now that's very important, because if you think of not moving at all, which means then matter here is not changing space, the Newton treats that as a special case, which is a rest case. So it's like there's no speed at all, which also counts like uniform motion in a straight line. So there's no speed. But there's very interesting here that Newton is talking about resistance to change in motion, and not necessarily whether that matter itself that is at the same space where it is dead or is not capable of making any move. So when Newton talks about matter being in inertia, it doesn't mean that it cannot move. It's either it resists moving. It resists that change in motion. And that does not mean that that inertia clearly shows inability of the same matter to move. That's now philosophical. Of course, what he talks about is the scientific level of it. But then Nkrumah is bringing an interesting thing here now when he talks of axioms. And when Nkrumah explained Newton's through axioms, it's very interesting because he says that now Newton's inertia becomes clear through the behavior described in the law, like objects keep their motion unless a force acts. So inertia here denies a body power of self-motion. And basically, I think, I don't know how that thinking is going to sound to us. And when you look at the African context, I know we have so many people who are thinking in their own way in terms of how the continent can move forward. Some think that, oh, the outside world can develop Africa, the loans we borrow, whatever, the IMF, this branding Africa Forward Summit we are having is what can make Africa move. If you talk today that Africa should be united, it should be independent so that it can develop, somebody tells you, how can Africa develop if it doesn't depend on loans, if it doesn't depend on this and this? So it means you perceive the continent as not able to move, as not able to develop itself, as not able to make any progress. And that maybe you'll be taking then what Newton thinks about matter in this case. But you see, Nkrumah says that even Newton will also deny that a body can have rotating self-motion, meaning an object won't start spinning or changing its spin by itself. So can the Africa, in terms of the liberation of Africa, does it mean that the Africa itself cannot liberate itself? Must either the Sahel depend on Russia or East for them to survive the attacks on the West? Must a country like Ghana either develop by just depending on IMF? Must the unification of Africa be triggered by outside forces? Or is it possible that Africans can then push forward the agenda of their own unification? So those are a few things that are interesting, but also the pushiness here is very interesting. And Nkrumah is using a metaphor, Whitehead, saying that the inertia of matter corresponds to its pushiness. Now, yes, actually, the pushiness is being used in contrast sense. Now, if a thing had a strong pushiness, which is self-driven motion, it will be able to change motion or start moving on its own. But inertia means it doesn't, so it resists the same changes. So the metaphor here suggests that inertia is the opposite of self-starting motion or the self-motion. I'll just use a very simple example as I end. Now, a chair doesn't start rolling or turning by itself. If you want it to move, what do? Or you spin it, you push it. That's the example Newton is trying to put here. But in general, actually, what Nkrumah is saying here is that matter, what Nkrumah is trying to challenge here is the essence of matter being in art. So they're often making that broad claim that matter doesn't act by itself. And that's what Newtons and the rest are trying to make. But it's not that it doesn't move, it resists changes sometimes. So does it mean that where Africa is, if it's not liberated currently, or is not united currently, or is not developed currently, does it mean that Africa is resisting liberation, unification, and development? Or do we want to say that there's nothing going on at all? Can we be able to see that, of course, as Africa tries to move forward, there's some leadership that's trying to bring us backward? So it doesn't mean that we cannot move forward. For example, when Gaddafi tried to build Libya, what happened? Something stopped it, something from outside. Now, will you say that it's impossible if you have to perceive it in that way? Or it is possible and there's something that stops it, rather than it must be pushed by something outside? So that's what I would say, Brother Kwame. I've just tried my thinking.
Yeah, you've done, and you've done very well. Because if Newton is correct, which physics says he is, then the question then is, what causes gravity itself. So if you understand, if an external force is required to push it, then what is the cause of that pushiness? What is the source of the force that is doing the pushing? And as those of you know, CK is not here. CK is our in-house physicist. He would normally explain these things to us, but he's not here. So my understanding is that it took Einstein to explain the source of the pushiness. So Einstein's theory of relativity is what explained what Newton could not explain. Thank you very much for sharing. But is that a question? If it's a question or comment, you may, but otherwise I want to hear a sister before another gentleman.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we normally do. If we go from man to woman, male to female. So we vary the sounds as well. So, Brother Coco, just pause. Let's hear a female voice, and then we'll come to a male voice. So, and by the way, Brother Coco is before you, just so you know. Yeah. Sister Grace arrived not too long ago. So who was here first? Sister Ida was here first. Oh, Sister Ida is not here. Where's Sister Ida? She's disappeared. Oh. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Sister Ida has disappeared. So, Sister Tapua. Sister Portia, you were here first, weren't you? So maybe you should start with us. Start for the ladies. Sister Portia.
Yes, I'm here, Prof.
Yeah, you were here first. So and you had the reading in full, and you had time to go through it. So yes, please proceed. Share your thinking. Thanks. Oh, by the way, everyone, I've shared the video in the chat. Yeah, it's 40 megabytes big. So please feel free to download it if you want. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Sister Portia, please proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. As usual, I'm gonna go line by line. It's one paragraph, and it looks to be 10 sentences. So the first sentence, my first thinking is the first sentence says matter resists change. The second sentence references are made through a person in terms of their purview. The third sentence, as per that person's purview, it says inertia is said to be the first law of motion. And then the fourth sentence gives a further explanation. And basically, I could be, like I'm right now, walking, and then the bird could be singing, and both of those are in some type of emotion, even though they could be perceived as different types of motion. And then the fifth sentence says that limitedness could be seen as a state of rest. So there's still motion happening, but it's a limited type motion. And then the sixth sentence says to justify motion, one can see examples. And then that's to Professor and King Brother Efo's earlier point. So seventh sentence says the examples will show evidence. The eighth sentence says law of motion can be in contrast with a body's power of self-motion. So as I was saying, I was walking and motion is still happening, even motioning below my feet. I'm walking on grass. I'm not grounding myself, but right now, as I'm walking on grass, there's other types of motion on there, and that could be seen as a contrast. And then number 9 says that again, through a person's purview, they give some type of resistance to what is called a rotating motion. And then the last sentence just delves into another person by saying that this type of motion, this contrasting of motion with matter, both of them arguably still in motion, could be seen as, I guess, a push or a pull, depending on how you see it. And so my additional thinking, and I talked about this when I was reading the miseducation of The Negro by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And I was saying that I noticed in that book when it came to mentioning some persons who are not melanated, arguably, they use the names as the end name. So in this case, you see two surnames being used, and I was questioning that presumption that I would know who they're talking about. And so I'm trying to get this introduced in 2 weeks, because I got to try to get it in 2 minutes, because I only have probably like 15 minutes to speak. But I want to try to get what I'm saying, which is a bit rattling now, or is rattling now. It's the synthesis, or it's the summary of racial capitalist systems. A presumption, a presumption that everything starts from such systems, a presumption that whoever is in those systems, they will know who are considered the leaders or the founders or the philosophers of the system. And so you'll notice me in my very pushback way, I'm not purposely mentioning any of the two persons that former Ghanaian President Kwame Nkrumah mentioned. Now, I did Google to just see who are these persons. And again, that assumption that anybody's going to know reading that. Now, I don't know if the names were mentioned earlier in the text, but this is seen throughout. Oh, well, you know that person. But then if you mention someone who is of a Kibbulan origin, you'll be missed if I say, oh, well, you know who I'm talking about, Nom Zamo, Winifred, Zanyiwe, Madiki, Zela, Mandela. Just mentioning all of those words, I would have to mention the whole name before someone say, oh, you're talking about Nelson Mandela's, one of his former wives. So there's an explanation in these racial capitalist systems that people in these are consistently having to do. We refer to the racial capitalist systems for guidance. We even exalt some of the perceived philosophers, scientists, astronomers in these capitalisms. We take it that they said it, it is so. And I would take a point being here where I am. A lot of times in North America, there were Akibalanese. Of course, we didn't begin in North America, but my point is, and I'll wrap up, Akibalanese, when we were trafficking over here, our ancestors, we did a lot of work here in terms of science, in terms of writing, in terms of advising, and not credited because our ancestors over here in North America, specifically United States of America, were not seen as humans. So we are crediting people who arguably stole intellectual property. So in my resistance, in my revolutionary resistance, what I continue to do is name us Akibalanese, exalt us, because we were the first scientists, we were the first revolutionaries, we were the first philosophers. And no, I won't refer to this region of the world to guide me in how I talk to my ancestors or how I try to connect with all of this called universes. I yield.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sister Portia, for sharing your thinking. Let's now go to Brother Coco, please. Thank you.
Revolutionary greetings to all of you, sisters and brothers. I would like to thank you, Sister Portia, because I'm going to start with something that you alluded to. In some of my elemental training or education, we learn that when you walk on the ground, you are actually pushing back on the ground, and then the ground pushes back at you. So that is how motion is created. by you as a human, who you can argue that you have a power of self-motion, but you are using the earth, which appears in it, and that earth pushes back at you to propel you. Another one example is the earth. The earth is constantly orbiting around the sun. And for those of you who are history lovers, you know that when Galileo found that and tried to present that to the church, they wanted to burn him at the stake for that. But that is what is happening. The fact that we can't hear or we can't feel the earth moving, it doesn't mean that it's not moving. The earth is constantly orbiting around the sun. My third element is that here in this text, Dr. Nkrumah is implying it. In fact, I think we talked about this last time, that even motion, resistance is defense. That resisting motion is actually stopping. It takes an effort for the material to resist motion. Is still motion. But then let me come to Newton. So what he's talking about axioms here is that Newton has already proposed principles. He's starting with those first laws of motion. And that first law of motion is a starting point in a way. It's an axiom which is accepted. But in this case, his law is denying what you call spontaneous acceleration of matter, and is also denying spontaneous directional change in matter. Let's not forget there are three different motions. In this case, there are three different kinds of motion. There's that linear motion, and then the rotary motion, and then the alteration of property. So which you can call transformation as well. And when anybody talks about motion, you need to clarify which kind of motion are you talking about. And you have seen in the chart which Professor shared that the world, if an object is just stationary there, and if everyone else around that object is moving, and in another case the object is orbiting around with others, there is motion in both. There is an element of motion in both of them. So with Newton, in this case, by him denying the spontaneous acceleration or spontaneity of the direction change, it doesn't really settle the metaphysical question whether matter contains within it the principles of developments, or whether matter can undergo a qualitative transformation, which I've just referred to as the third kind of motion. And it also doesn't preclude that matter can change internally. So this is what Dr. Nkrumah is trying to emphasize here, that yeah, he is actually already denying self-motion, but that doesn't cover the whole lot. So what we understand here is that Dr. Nkrumah thinks there is an error here, because the philosophers who take Newton's inertia as an axiom or a starting point, then they inflate it into the universality of metaphysics or metaphysical doctrine in this case, and they move from matter does not spontaneously alter linear motion. To summarize and say, matter is fundamentally passive. This is what he is arguing against. And because Newton's law itself does not say anything about the third motion, and it doesn't say anything about development. It doesn't say anything about emergence, nor does it talk about dialectical change or alteration of properties. So by alteration of property, we're talking about dialectics in this case. And for dialecticians, we know that becoming itself is more fundamental, is more fundamental than displacement. And anything can move if it changes what it is, or if it develops contradictions, or it transforms its properties. Let's not forget that. So this is again a cue for self-development, internal transformation, which Brother Pigbin has already alluded to, and dialectical becoming. So again, just to conclude with Whitehead's pushiness. Whitehead's pushiness takes me back to where I said pushiness itself, it suggests persistence and activity. It's not just inert matter. It's not just passive matter. It resists interference. A matter in that case, it preserves its states and maintains trajectories. So matter is not dead. It's not passive. It's not dead passivity, if I can say. So to conclude here, Dr. Nkrumah is arguing that anti-dialectical philosophers, they reduce motion to just mechanical displacement. And by doing so, they misunderstand the dynamics or dynamism of matter. I hope that's clear.
Yes, it is. And if I may ask you a question, linking to Brother Pigeon's. So if, as Brother Pigeon asked, Africa doesn't seem to be moving forward, and are there forces pushing Africa in a particular direction? And is it having an effect on Africa? Or where is Africa going? So in terms of what you said, are you able to just share something small on that?
Africa can move and chart its own path, as we have learned on. We ourselves even know that Africa can use the material that Africa has. But the problem with Africa is that it was developed to provide the raw materials for the rest of the world. And even the infrastructure that Africa has is meant for that, is geared towards trade with the rest of the world rather than trade within itself. So the first thing that Africa has to do, first of all, is to reroute the infrastructure to ensure the infrastructure comes inwards into Africa itself, and then beneficiate all of the materials that Africa produces, and only sell what is a finished product, not what Africa is doing right now, selling uranium and then importing electricity from abroad, or selling raw oil or petroleum oil and then importing all the other products which are made from oil, including Vaseline, including paraffin, diesel, petrol, all of those stuff. This is are stuff we can produce ourselves. And by so doing, we start saving money for other projects. Not just that we are going to produce revenues from the sale of those. So this is a double whammy for us as Africans. All right. Not just that we, by remaining as partitions, smaller partitions that we are, we are setting up ourselves to be picked up one by one, like the USA have just demonstrated with this healthcare that they've been selling around. They wouldn't dare do that to a stronger, united Africa to sell a healthcare and say, I want access to your materials in exchange for this. Because then you know who you're dealing with. But in this case, they know they can do that.
Yeah. No, thank you. I mean, sometimes it's as if these people don't respect us, and the way some of our leaders behave, it validates their thesis when they come, But anyway, that's why people were surprised that the AES accepted. People would expect the AES to fight, to be those who would say no. And then they said yes. So people were actually surprised. Some people were horrified. Some people were confused. Anyway, I know Raspala tried to explain to us why they did. But anyway, let's move on to Sister Tapua and then Brother Ifu after that. Sister Tapua, what is your thinking?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
It took me quite some time to get to terms with the passage because I was one of those students who never quite understood Newton from my physics lessons.
Oh, you're not alone, sister. You're not alone.
So as soon as I saw Newton and Newton's law of motion, I said, no.
I had no clue what the physics teacher was teaching when I was in secondary school. and he was a white man. I was like, what the is this man talking about?
Anyway, I think I'd like to thank those people who have made suggestions, who have shared their contributions before me, because it's also been a learning process for me. The most important thing for me that I've learned is change, how change happens. And I'm seeing this change in motion. In other words, what I'm understanding Nkrumah to be saying is change could happen because of a push from outside that moves the object, whatever it is. And the environment can also change around an object and thus introducing change. So I was thinking from my understanding of history that if we're looking at the maroon societies amongst the enslaved people, what we found is resistance, self-propelled motion that caused the environment to change. In them establishing countries like Haiti and so on. But taking Haiti as an example, we find that the environment in which Haiti is trying to survive is impacting the direction in which Haiti can go. So there's always that relationship between externally induced motion and self-propelled motion. I've also then proceeded to look at the liberation struggles that we went through in Africa. And looking at the situation in Ghana, for example, and in West Africa, Nkrumah clearly saw that whilst to some extent we had forced the change to happen, the environment in which the independence of the African countries was happening was also changing. So it'd be naive for us to think that because we are pushing, the environment is going to remain still for us to push in the direction, to enable us to push in the direction that we want to go. And Nkrumah, that's why Nkrumah was saying to all Africans, let's be together and make meaningful pushiness against the external influences that would debunk the whole idea that Africans can rule themselves. And I'm looking at what's been happening this week from a historical point of view. You have the France suffering because the French countries have had this pushiness, which has forced France to change and pivot and create a different external force that the EIS has to respond to. And Nkrumah is also saying, just like capitalism will result in development, though unfavorable to the ordinary person, it's still development. What we are seeing in the EIS is development, but it's self-driven in development. Of course, taking cognizance of the fact that no place is an island. And what was happening in Kenya is the second kind of motion that Nkrumah was talking about, where France, seeing that they cannot deal with their own erstwhile colonies, is starting to try and change the environment in which EIS and the others are going to survive in order for that development to favor them. So what I hear from what Nkrumah is saying...
Tapoa, sorry. Do you mean AES when you say EIS?
Yes, sorry,
AES.
AES.
Okay, right, please.
Sorry.
Thank you. It's all right.
AES.
All right.
It's okay. Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing Nkrumah saying here is that there will be development. There will be favorable development for the people. And there will be unfavorable development. In other words, the AES?
Yes.
AES development has consciencism in it. It has the people at heart. Whereas what we are seeing being initiated by France has capitalist interests at heart. So the question is, are the roads and the railways that are going to be built by either AES or the French whatever going to make a difference to the development of Africa? Yes, Africa will have all the bright lights and everything else, but for whose benefit? And I think that's where we're going, that we need to have consciencism in whatever is happening in the heart of Africa. That's my understanding, and I'll end there for now. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you for raising the issue of the Africa Forward Summit that was chaired by France. It's an interesting example. And I think we are, Brother Pigeon is helping us gather data on who attended, what Macron actually said, etc., etc. But one thing that he said that is being circulated is that the French, are the Pan-Africanists.
True Pan-Africanists.
Yeah. So once we get the full speech, we can then dissect it. And I was suggesting that it's part of our Saturday meeting at some point. But yeah, I have myself been thinking very hard about that summit and why our leaders went. And from my understanding of public office, when leaders attend some of these conferences, they get per diem, they get free accommodation. Some of the men especially get to sleep around, etc., etc., etc. So I'm thinking, why would any leader in their right sense attend a French conference knowing what France has done? So it's, anyway, we reserve our judgment for now until we gather the data. It may mean in the end that France will get nothing out of it. And the other thing also is crossed my mind is it possible that the Secret Service, the French Secret Service, actually bribe leaders also to go there? Is that possible? Could it be that they bribe people? Could it be that some people were paid to be there, etc., etc., etc.? But like I said, we will come to those when we gather the data. Yes, but Ifo, please come in. Thank you.
Okay. When you're talking about the we that are going to reserve judgment, please don't include me in that we.
No problem. No problem.
Because
yeah, the reason I said we, brother Ifo,
I understand what you meant. I'm just being facetious.
I know. But the reason I said we is that I was referring to CSG as a whole, making a judgment prior to getting the data. Yeah, but as an individual, yes, of course. I'm sure you made up your mind what is really happening anyway.
Well, the thing is, when the folks that France has been exploiting are trying to kick them out, and then you have those who have not been exploited directly by France yet as much, deciding to invite them in, that speaks volumes. So I don't think they need to be bribed. They're people who are only interested in whatever they think will make them will get them the most profit for themselves, not necessarily for the people. But that's a different story.
Okay.
Back to this philosophy, and there was comments about Russia and AES. I've always reminded people that when you are aware that you are at war, and when you realize that the person that you're at war with does not fight fair, you might pick an enemy of their enemy to assist you or to act as a deterrent. Not necessarily because you like that other. I'm talking about Russia or China in this case, but I'm saying strategically from a military standpoint, it's important to have some alliances that can make your enemy think twice about invading you. But so that's how I see Russia in AES, and it was the same thing with Russia in Cuba. And for those of us from the Biafra area, we remember that Russia and South Africa were helpful to our ancestors at that time. So yeah, I think those things are important. But it's not that we need an external force to tell you that you're exploited and to tell you that you should fight, or to tell you to restore some sense of dignity to the people that are in the land. But there can be some assistance in the process, which can sometimes make things a little bit easier, and sometimes can also make things worse if the alliance is not properly balanced. But as they said in this text about inertia, in my physics lessons, we were taught that an object in motion tends to stay in motion, and an object in rest tends to stay in rest. And we have a motion in most of Africa and most of the world in the general direction of racial capitalism. And so there is a need to provide a correcting force to slow down and redirect towards conscientism and towards socialism. But that has to be conscious, because there's so much motion in the direction of the opposite of what would be beneficial to the masses of the people. And so there's a need, and there's a lot of propaganda about that too. So we need to be conscious as we share conscientism. I always have a hard time saying that with each other. On that note, I shall yield the mic. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Let's hear from, what happened to Sister Ida? Can someone contact Sister Ida, make sure she's okay? Because she was here. Right, let's hear from another sister, but there's no sister left. Oh, Sister Amma has arrived, but I don't know if she can speak. Let me just check the chat, see if she can speak. If she does inform us in the chat if she can't speak. Okay. Sister Amma, if you can speak, please unmute and share your thinking. If you're not ready, I'll come back to you later. Yeah.
No, I'm not quite ready yet.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening. Oh, where is Brother Chidi? He's disappeared. I knew he would disappear. He can never stay in a meeting for an hour because of his because of where he is, where he's joining from. But anyway, so there's no other sister at the moment. So let's hear from another brother. Let's hear from Brother General. What did the Anunnaki think about all these physical laws and so on? Brother General, I thought the Anunnaki will teach us a few things about the aircraft and physics and laws and so on and so forth. Yes. Yeah, General, you are muffled. Yeah, so please just correct your mic.
Okay. Sound better now?
Very much better. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Basically, all greetings to everyone at large. Even give thanks. Yes, give thanks even for those who've spoken. Yes. So what are we directly the question you asked me?
No, feel free to say what you want, but it's basically what we've shared and your thoughts on. I'm thinking of what Anunnaki would think about these laws, inertia, where you need someone to tell you what to do, and then self-motion, where you can act by yourself. But this paragraph focuses mostly on Isaac Newton and what his law means. His first law of motion, where it means that you need to be. Yeah. So I'm very certain that we'll have something to say about that. Yeah.
Yes, my lord. Yes, I know. I hear. Yeah. So thank you for that as well. So the thing is, basically, from my understanding and from this whole text, is that first of all, we need to understand that, as Dr. Kwame was talking about, these laws that he discovered when he went to study overseas and discovered these people who were talking about their discovery.
General has frozen. General, are you there?
Is that the laws themselves were not created. Yes, do you hear me? Do you hear
Okay,
me?
we can hear you now. Yes, you went off slightly for a few seconds. Yeah, we can hear you now. Please. Yeah, you were saying that Nkrumah learned about these laws when he went abroad. Yeah.
Yeah, when he went abroad, and then from learning there, he discovered basically the mindset of the European mind. You see, whereas that if you can look at we all know the rhetorical question. The rhetorical is history that the first white people were the Greeks who were taught civilization, who were taught education, whatever. And Homer was basically the first white writer, whatever. So, and then these guys, Newton came after Homer. These guys came after the Greeks. You understand? And then when they came, the thing is that with them is that because they have that capitalist mindset, even the information itself was capitalist. Because that is why when you look at the law, they will say it's Newton's third law of motion. But whereas the fact is that the law is not Newton's law, it's the law of nature, you see, having that principle. But because he's the one who first discovered it in that white society, so we had to name it under his name so that he will gain royalties and credibility from that society. You see, it's like can say an ego boost. Same with what is happening now with the space race. The Chinese have went on the far side of the moon where no humans have ever went. Okay, with an inverted comma, no humans have ever went. So now the Chinese, when the Chinese are actually the first superpower now who actually landed on the dark side of the moon and actually started extracting minerals and brought it back here on Earth and started running DNA samples and are now actually having an ambition to start building a moon base on the moon, because now they've actually discovered that the moon actually has ice rocks in it, because that far side never had like sunlight for like a meal. Okay, that's not the point, but I'm trying to show to you that the Chinese have now more space technology than the actual European. But when you look at the mainstream media, the European is showing as if the Chinese are still orbiting the moon. But today you've seen Trump has went into to Xi Jinping talking about exchangement of technology, blah, 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 blah. So we see that that ego, it's in them, in their mindset, because they're the ones who first went into the moon before the Chinese in 1970s. But when they went to the moon, they went to go and walk the moon and dance and put a flag of America and not actually take DNA samples and conduct actually research on the moon. They just went for ego that, yeah, we as the whites are the only one capable of going to the moon, no one else. And then 50 years ago, 50 years later, here's the Chinese actually going there not to walk, but to actually conduct experiments for their development of their society. So I want to bring this back now to this issue of Newton. Why he calls it Newton's law is in the basis of that, not in the basis of people understanding this origin. So that's why I was shocked to find out that even as Dr. Amos talks about it, before I close a minute, Dr. Amos says that even physics, maths, you see, is political. You understand? It's not neutral as we thought, as we were grown up, our parents to think. Even the maths and the physics is written by a white man based on his perception of the mathematics he got from its source, which is obviously Egypt and the Arabs. You see? So even the maths is right on the perception of the white man. Even the history of mathematics, applications of the mathematics is written on the perception of the white mathematician. You see? So that's why we see that, oh, okay, no, we are finding out that, okay, fine, the things that they're talking about is, for instance, the law of motion. We're talking about the law of rotation, rotary self-motion. We talk about the law of inertia here, whereby matter corresponds to its pushiness. These are laws that were discussed by Imhotep, those ancient scientists long ago. So for me, the thing I always look at is the source of the information before I actually dive into the information. As I said here, that Newton, we know where we got the information. It's not his information. And therefore, whatever information that you need to dive in, we need to dive in the information in the mindset of an African. Then we can get its fullness or its holistic content. Thank you.
Yeah, don't go, General. Just a follow-up question. So, I've seen pictures of the weapons that were used to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah by the ancestors, and some argue that those are weapons that knew of these laws already. Are you familiar with that? That they use some of these weapons that they are developed.
Can you just repeat the last part? Sorry.
that the weapons that were used to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, as found in the Bible, that the weapons that were used, the fire that came from the sky, were actually precursors of nuclear weapons as we know them. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you able to say a few words before we go on? We are still on the laws of physics, by the way, everyone.
Yes, sir. Yes, I'll be brief as much. So I think if members can go back to one of the interviews or the presentations I made last year of the Dogan, I think it was part 2 of that presentation. I briefly spoke about the effects of the Sahara, you see, and the Kalahari Desert, you see, and the Arabian Desert. See, you remember when I also said that it's really pointless to say Sahara Desert because Sahara means desert itself, the word, you remember? So yeah, what happened is that the causation of those deserts there, more especially the Arabian Desert, was the cause of the nuclear weapons that were used by our black ancestors to nuke Sodom and Gomorrah and the spaceport, which was in that place called Mount Sinai, which is that small piece of land just on the top of the Red Sea when you move from Egypt to Palestine. Yes, that place, that mountain there used to have a spaceport of the black people who actually built that spaceport. So there was a fight over it, and then when after that fight, and then the council of the black gods decided, no, let's nuke the place so that you see such and such and such. So it was a nuclear bomb, and we have other evidences of this, just that we won't have time now. Evidences of this, just I'll mention one. Look at the ziggurats in Iraq. There's a tourist attractions on those ziggurats there. Look at those ziggurats. You can clearly see that the walls and the stones have melted. So there's no sun exposure that has ever melted a stone to that level. Only a intense, high explosive device can melt a burnt brick. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Or to say that it is in Newton's law. It's your law, actually. In black people, it's your law. Yeah, let's go to Brother Welcome, please. Thank you. Brother Windhoek, are you ready to share now? Or should I come back? Okay, Brother Welcome doesn't appear to be ready. So let's go to Brother Sechaba if he's not ready. If not, I'll go to Dr. Fury. Okay, Sechaba, welcome. Are you either of you ready? Okay. Okay, so let's go to Dr. Fury then, and then we'll come back to them later. Brother Fury. Oh, sorry, it's Piri. Sister Grace corrected. Sister Grace has also disappeared. She was here, and she's also gone. Dr. Piri, any thoughts from you? Any thinking on you? I know it's Piri now. Sorry, I was corrected the last time. You don't correct me, Dr. Piri. It was your sister who corrected me.
As long as I know that you're identifying me, I don't mind.
That's okay.
Make mistake. Yes. I would want to talk more about the laws, and also I also joined the meeting a little bit too late, so I will not be the right person to comment. And also, to be honest with you, when I was reading the book, I jumped that part because I'm not science is not my thing.
Yeah,
So,
you're not alone.
yeah, so I wouldn't want to act as if I would explain it because I don't think I will be able to explain properly. Yes, but I last time I was actually grateful with the explanation that you gave Dr. Professor Kwame, remember the one that you gave was quite enlightening. I was quite impressed with that. But here now, I think it's not only explaining science itself, it's in relation to the politics of it. But I wouldn't want to come into that. I'm not sure I'll be the right person. I think it's good for me to listen to others. Yeah, indeed.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Thank
okay.
you. Thank you very much.
That's okay. It's always been our policy that people ask us to go to the next person, and yeah, you don't have to speak if you feel you don't want to speak or can't speak. That's fine. So now, how people? Oh, Philip, we are okay. Let's see those who are left to speak. Amma, Philip, and welcome. But the welcome sign is up. That means it's ready. Brother, welcome. Please proceed. Yeah, unmute yourself and you may proceed. Thanks. Oh, Sister Ida is coming back. Brother Windhoek, are you ready? I thought I saw your hand up. No? Okay, let's go to brother Philip. If he can, he would like to share. Brother Philip, would you like to share?
Hi.
Sister Ida, we missed you. And in fact, I was looking for you. Yes, brother Philip. Please proceed. Thanks.
Yeah, good evening. I said in the comments that I joined late, so I prefer to listen.
Right. Okay.
More comment on the progress of Africa. And to one of the brothers was talking about heading towards self-sufficiency. I just want to say that sometimes we want to acknowledge that some of these ideas we have put, sometimes we unwittingly put out these ideas as though they are new ideas that we are coming up with. But we know that these ideas have been, of self-sufficiency, have been with us, for generations. The question is if it has been addressed before, like so many leaders. Nkrumah tried to address it and it couldn't be addressed. What stopped them in the past? Because coming up with the solutions that our forefathers have come up with is a first step. But the question is what stopped them in the past, and then how to address what stopped them. I think that's the more critical thing. I think we discussed that before. I just wanted to, raise it again and say that we put whatever ideas that we are coming in a certain context, like in the academic world, they want you to make a reference so that it doesn't look like, coming up with a new idea. And that means that we have to address what our forefathers, the challenges they faced and which we still face.
Okay. Right. So we've not heard from brother Philip. Let me just see who else is ready to speak. Brother Seshab, are you ready to speak now? Oh, Brother Sam hasn't spoken yet, Brother Sam. Yeah, Brother Sam. Brother Sam is PC man. Brother Sam, are you able to share?
Yes, Brother Kwame.
Please. I always confuse PC man and PCA. I always get the two confused. PC is a Porsche, and you are a PC man. So, anyway, yes, please share your thinking. Thanks.
Thank you, Brother Kwame, and everybody on the platform. Good evening, if it's at night, wherever you are. I have a little contribution, and my contribution is to say we are very fortunate because people like Kwame Nkrumah have given us what I can call a compass. The way he started this chapter, and what you revived this when we started with the slideshow that you showed. There's clear points that whatever we are going to do as we go down with this, it is all theory that must lead to practice, and that practice must develop new theory, and new theory must develop new practice, and the cycle goes on. And I think he is laying down principles that have to guide us in this revolution that we are talking about. But he already gave us exactly what are we interacting with. We need to solve how we live on this earth, especially for us in Africa. The Western colonization that has been with us, the Arabic influences that have been with us, but all that we need to mold it. We need to find a way to mold it into this African personality, a new African personality that is above all these things. And he says, for us to reach this goal that we need, we must know that we have to restitute, meaning we need to go back to where we really originate, where egalitarianism was the basis of our society, where Ubuntu was part of our society. And I think for me, those are the fundamentals that we get here. But he's giving us these laws that we all say who's Newton and what. But the essence is that everything is movement in everything. And if everything, or if something stands at still, that thing will not develop. It will die ultimately. We should understand all these things, and we should know that he says the part that I want to really dwell on is the issue of the intellectual revolution. And this for me, it is critical. You know, in South Africa, in the earlier days of the African Native Congress, we had intellectuals that came with the struggle, and they kept on writing petitions and petitions until the youth realized, hey, these intellectuals are not taking us anywhere, because they stagnated. They kept talking about, let's go send them a delegation to London. Let's go and appeal to the Queen and the King. That was Kwame is trying to show us that all these things, if in practice they don't, and ultimately they must restore our heritage as we had it in the past, and it must. But you know, I marvel myself, because in 1949, and this is my closing part. In 1949, a young student at Fort Hare University called Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, when he was analyzing the situation, I'm not sure, maybe even by that time they had read some of these books, but when he spoke about education in Africa, that must become the pillar that leads us to a new Africa. He said several fundamental points about that, but somebody summarized him by saying, Robert Sobukwe defined education as a vital tool for service, urging Africans to identify with the masses, develop a Pan-African consciousness, and dedicate their skills to building a new Africa. He emphasized that education must foster mental liberation, selflessness, and intellectual independence, moving away from Western-centric models to prioritize African aspirations and humanity. For me, this is basically what our leaders are saying. If we are not serving Africa, if we are not selfless, if we are not going to solve the current situation of our lives, where our people, being in the majority in a continent abundant with all mineral reserves and everything, and including the manpower that we need, then we would have failed the revolution. Thank you.
Thank you, brother PC Man. Thank you very much. As always, you shed a light on history. So I think I'm looking at the list. I think we've now heard from everyone. Unless Sister Ida wants to speak, I think everyone has now spoken. Yeah?
I think I'll pass. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. Let me share this screen with you. I won't explain much, but I'll just share it. It's a one slide summary of the paragraph. I think what it means has been touched on by everyone who spoke, which is the denial of self-motion, according to Einstein's theory. So this is Newtonian inertia, the nature of matter. And Newton's first law of motion, first law in motion, the first law basically says that bodies continue in uniform linear motion unless impressed upon by an external force. So the idea here is that even when you're at rest, you are still in motion. So that's the first law of motion, and rests as a limit of motion, where the state of rest is viewed as a limiting case of linear motion. So when something's resting, and we looked at the word axiom, and we said that is an axiom is a statement that doesn't need proof. So what it's saying is that these laws that Newton spoke about, and only the first one was of interest to us in this paragraph, that is an axiom, meaning that it's something that he stated as an axiom. He didn't prove it, but he stated it as an axiom. And the meaning of inertia we've looked at, and inertia is elucidated through axioms rather than direct definition. So he wasn't defining what inertia was. He demonstrated it through the axiom. So on the left-hand side, as you can see, is matter as Newton saw it. And the implications of what Newton is saying, yeah. Now, you can replace those images with Africa, if you like, or Kenya, or Ghana, whatever you like, yeah? And then that will give you a political economic idea of what we are talking about. So if you take the first image and say, well, let's imagine that is South Africa. Then he says South Africa will continue in its current direction unless South Africa is impressed by an external force. Yeah. And the external force that will shift South Africa from its current trajectory will be a force that moves it away from the ANC legacy, which says that where we are happy with the white man, we want to live with them, they are okay, you shouldn't drive them away, okay, yes, they've done some things wrong, but at the end of the day, we want them to continue living in South Africa. It belongs to all who live in it. That trajectory will continue unless something impresses it from outside. So that is what Newton law is saying. That's as an example. Same with Ghana. If I took Ghana as an example, currently all the political parties are just managing the new colonial economy. The big parties are fighting over who can better manage the new colonial economy. Is it the NDC? Is it the NPP? They fight it out. It was NPP the last time that won, and then now the NDC. The NDC says, look at us. Look at how beautiful we can do the job. We can manage the new colonial economy so much better. And no one, is saying, actually, why don't we look at the foundations, except the AES, as we understand they are doing. They are saying, actually, we need to look at the foundations of the economy first, etc., etc., etc. So there on the right-hand side are the limits of matter. And basically, if you go by Newton, then it means that South Africa or Ghana can change unless there is self-motion. And we've seen AES that it is young soldiers from within its own political economy that rose up to change things, which means that it is within Ghana, it is within South Africa, it is within Libya, Egypt, wherever you want to mention, Ethiopia, that the change will come. So, but the point is that Newton's first law of motion denies that matter has self-motion. That is the point here. And that's the point of this paragraph. When we move on, we can see that it says other things, yeah? That we disagree with Newtonian axioms on matter. We disagree with it. We're not disagreeing with the physics. Yeah, we're disagreeing with the philosophical implications of the physics if it is applied to human beings, because human beings have powers of self-motion. You can get up and walk. That is self-motion. You don't need anybody to tell you to walk. You don't need anyone to force you to walk. Of course, you can be forced to walk, etc., but you can walk by yourself. That is in the absence of any challenges to your mobility. So Newton basically denies self-motion, and then Whitehead's terminology of pushiness was then mentioned in the last paragraph, which basically we'll look at further. Basically, it's basically saying that if matter cannot move unless it is pushed from outside, maybe South Africa is pushing, Ghana is pushing, I'm just saying, yeah, then it means that it's pushiness, which means that things can only move if they are pushed. So inertia is pushiness. Yeah. So that basically is that paragraph. That paragraph is at the end of the day is telling us that matter does, you Africans, if we apply to Africans, you cannot act unless something pushes you from outside. And maybe that is why Macron came, our sister, is it Satapoa that mentioned it, to push Africa towards their camp. Anyway, so that's an interesting paragraph. I'll pause there, and then we will hear from Brother Pigeon on the announcements. Thank you. Brother Pigeon, are you there for the announcements? Right. Yeah, Dr. Piri. Yeah, feel free to speak. I'm looking for the timetable for this way. Please proceed.
Yeah. Actually, I was even thinking that actually Newton was talking about the laws of physics themselves, was not referring to humanity. So if Kwame Nkrumah would have referred to humanity and make a critique on Newton, it doesn't really make much sense because it's him who's making that comparison. Because of course, how nature and physics behaves, of course, it behaves with particular laws, which when you apply the same laws to humanity is more dynamic and unpredictable. So you would expect the difference. So according to him, he's saying that there's an element that is lacking the implication because the physics itself was not commented on the basis of how its implication, in relation to humanity. It was just within how things work. And even Newton didn't create anything or found anything. I think, like what you have been saying, that there have been some people before him who were able to identify how things work out with particular laws as they move, how they fall, it had been there. He just was able just to have a name on that. But now to transfer those laws of physics within humanity, and humanity is more unpredictable and more dynamic. I think it's like what Rene Descartes called a categorical mistake, that you are comparing one thing against it's the other thing that is different. Okay, that's why when I was reading that part, that's why I couldn't comment. I was not sure what was he trying to do, so I said I don't want to touch this part.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Thank
you. You make a very good point, because then what you are saying also will apply to the theory of atoms that said that matter is made up of atoms, that atoms cannot be created or destroyed. And if matter is made up of atoms, and atoms are self-contained units, if what you're saying is right, then how did it come about that it found its way into philosophical and social theory, where individuals began to be seen as individuals, like atoms, who are self-contained, who can act by themselves, etc., etc. So you see, so physical theory somehow finds its way into social theory. But because of time, we won't get into it now. But you've raised a very important point, which we can look at next week. Yeah. But thank you for raising it. Right. I've shared the this thing for next week, but I don't know if Brother Pigeon is here to make an announcement. Brother Pigeon, is he gone? Okay, he's gone. Okay, so right. Okay, so let me make the announcements then. I think we shall meet again next Thursday for our for continuation of our study. On Saturday, we are meeting to discuss food security as national security. Please, when we say national security, we mean the Africa the whole as a nation. Yeah, that's what we mean by national security. Although the African nation hasn't come about yet, that is, we see the world, we see Africa as one nation. It's just waiting to be ratified. Yeah. It doesn't matter what South Africans are saying. Don't worry what South Africans are saying, that they don't want African unity. Don't worry about them. They will be part of United Africa when the time comes. So let's not worry about that. But anyway, so food security as national security. That is topic of development. That is for Saturday, tomorrow next. So yeah. Then on Monday there is a reading club. Where brothers are, I think, and sisters are reading on the book. There's a book they are reading, and then on Tuesday, I think there's a Kiswahili class, I believe. So yeah, so those are the sessions that I think are going forward. Sister Portia, are you still there?
Of course, I am, comrade.
Make a comment on the permanent forum thing that you have shared. You've asked for people who are interested to join the WhatsApp group.
Sure. And sure, no problem. It is not about the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, and I'll be contacting each person in our CSG WhatsApp group one-on-one to ask you to come to another WhatsApp group so we can put forward an application through the Kwame Nkrumah Trust, which is an organization that is African diaspora focused and is linked to the Consciencism study group. And that application will be to get one of 20 seats that the African Union Economic, Social, and Cultural Council is saying you can apply for. Now, in no way am I speaking on behalf of AU ECOSOC. I wouldn't dare. What I'm saying is I think this is a very great opportunity for CSG through the Kwame Nkrumah Trust because of all the great work that CSG has done globally. And if a seat was awarded, then CSG would have a direct voice to a large number of African diasporas. So I think apply. It's going to be very political size. I'm sure arguably people are already saying they have the seats, but still try. And then the lobbying will need to be on the people in this network who may have contacts at AU ECOSOC will need to lobby to try to get the trust to be considered as a candidate. So we'll need help putting together that application. It'll be quite competitive. So I hope this answers your question. Yes. And then as I said next week, y'all please attend this armed struggle presentation I give. And I'm also wanting to talk about resource mobilization. So a number of things are happening. Over to you, Bro.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. That's the end of the session. I'm going to stop the recording now. And